So for those of you who have not met me, I'm Jake Hoffberg. I'm the CEO here at Regenerative Industrial. This over here is my dad. This is Kevin Hoffberg. He is chairman of the board, our second co-founder. This is Clayton Turner. He's the original science nerd behind this, so he's the third co-founder. I used to raise money for early stage companies, raise about $100 million for mostly mining companies, material science, manufacturing, medical devices, pharmaceutical, really hard stuff that had hard regulatory issues and hard science issues. So when I met Clay, he had been working on solving this problem for about 10 years already. So I got to benefit from the collective wisdom of Clay. He brought along with him his team. So Steve Lund over here, they've been working 10 years. You've been working with Steve? 7, yeah. And then Ben for 10. And then Richard Ziff is a returning cast member from previous seasons, which we'll introduce here in just a minute. So what our company does is we engineer and commercialize what's called waste to profit technology. So in this specific case, the waste is waste wood coming from sawmills specifically. And so we've got Tom and Mitch Kroom. There's Mitch right here. I think Tom somewhere floating around. So they are down in Alaska. They are our partners here locally. And so we will be moving into our phase 1 pilot facility. I think we're pouring the concrete slab tomorrow. Yep. So we're pouring the slab. We got these big things. We'll talk about this in a second. We're installing our phase 1 facility. It's going to have 10 of these kilns. We call these small modular biomass reactors. And we're going to tell you all about it. So in terms of the big idea in 60 seconds, and what I'm really excited about in terms of the economic opportunity is biomass to buildings and biomass to batteries, which is super cool. So one of the things that I've been paying attention to is that we have multiple big problems here in Washington and really the United States. So on one end, we are here in the Lewis County Biofuel Development Opportunity Zone. And if you guys haven't met Bob, he's one of the architects of this. So thank you for signaling to people like us that there's a great opportunity. So one of the main problems we have right now is a lot of biomass here in Washington and other places that no longer has a home for the waste wood. So I'm sure all of you are familiar, paper and pulp mills have been shutting down. The waste wood that we're processing used to go to these facilities, and now it doesn't have anywhere to go. And processing this waste wood is really going to be the key, in my opinion, to unlocking the potential of this wood basket of really high quality softwoods we have here in Washington. On the other side of the equation, we need to build stuff here in Washington and everywhere, and it's just getting harder and harder to build things in the state of Washington. Why? Well, we can say tariffs and other things, but that's just a symptom of it. The reason why it's expensive is because we just don't have the infrastructure here anymore to build things the way that we used to. But on the other side, we also have this demand for higher and higher compliance requirements for the built environment, whether that's the Buy Clean, Buy Fair Act, which went into effect July 1st, and that's going to require embodied or environmental product disclosures, EPDs. It's going to require disclosures on fair labor practices, and it's going to require disclosures on things like carbon emissions, et cetera. Everyone we've talked to says, if you could provide us, local, sustainable, renewable, magic ingredients, we would totally buy them. But the biggest issue is always price, right? How do you supply these materials to builders to build things in a high compliance regime that meets the spec? Biomass, we think, is the key. There's already home builders that are moving on board with driving the biomass to buildings thesis. And Richard over here, who you'll hear from or you'll meet later, has been working on some version of biomass for 30 years now, Richard? So using natural fibers from specifically industrial hemp. So we're really, really excited by what we think is the opportunity for Lewis County to be the leader in certainly Washington, maybe the United States, on green and sustainable construction practices, biomass to buildings. So in terms of where economic opportunity zones tend to fall short, whether it's an online, it's eBay or it's something else. Every marketplace or ecosystem has to solve the cold start problem. Hey, we got a really good idea. We've got a bunch of the supply already on site, but now we have to make a market between the supply side and the demand side and not lose too much money in the middle of making those things. So when we look at the real issue in a lot of ways comes down to what is fundable. So what we see, especially here in Washington, is there's a lot of research dollars going into what do we do with the wood. Washington State and University of Washington, $40 million a piece to do some studies of it. So there's lots of funding over here on this left side for this basic manufacturing research and proof of concept. But when you talk to professors, they'll say, but Jake, we're not in the factory building business. We don't commercialize this stuff, and we need private industries to be our commercialization partners. And this is where you get into the classic valley of death, is that nobody really wants to finance that. We talk to people all the time. They're like, man, we really want to put like $100 million, $250 million into your thing. Like, we can't do anything with that. That's way too big. We need, $500,000. We need something here. And this is where I've spent my entire career in financing, is solving this problem right here, going from production in a laboratory, which would be, a bench scale thing, to capacity to produce a prototype, which you're going to see over here today, to capacity in production environment, which is what we're doing over at Croom. And once we can kind of clear this valley of death, all the money just shows back up. And I'm already talking to people who have told me just as much. Hey, as soon as you cross, this whatever, we're in. And all the people in this room right now are going to be part of making that story happening and getting this project, this BDO zone, to that starting point where everybody's now in. So when we think about what we're doing here, so we're an early stage manufacturing company, and Washington needs to double its manufacturing industrial base. I think it should be here in Lewis County, and they should be making stuff out of our biomass. So if we have early stage manufacturing companies, the critical question of getting new businesses to form here, not just importing businesses, is how do you get that business revenue? Well, to get that business revenue, they have to enter into a supply chain. And in order to enter into a supply chain, you need to have all of the certificates and labels and other things that make that buyer say, this is a counterparty we will do business with. So we have been moving ourselves through that pathway through various certifications, ISO, ASTM testing, USDA BioPreferred, OMRI, to prove that our product is what we say it is. And now we can move into, does it do what we say it does? So if you are in a manufacturing setup, there's the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer. And in the supply chain, you've got tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So you have components. But at the base of it, tier N is natural resources. So what happens when all of your manufacturing industrial base requires natural resources that no longer exist? Right? It just completely destroys multiple supply chains. So what we see as our opportunity is to become the premier source of the tier N resource, the natural resources that are going to become the building materials of the future, that every manufacturing company is going to want to come here so that they can get access to that material here in Lewis County. So one of the things that I got an error there. So one of the things that I got good at when I was doing things like, how does FDA approval work? How do you get drugs to sell? How do you get that label that allows you to make a medical claim that this thing does what you say it does? It's a process. Well, it turns out at the federal level, there are 5 main labeling schemes that the government has a mandatory preference for. So the Department of Energy, for example, has Energy Star. So if you're a public buyer and you're buying an appliance, you basically have to have an Energy Star appliance or no one will buy that thing from you. Just how it goes. The EPA has their comprehensive procurement guide, which is standards for recycled products. They want you to use recycled products, and if it's available, it's cost competitive, and it hits the performance specs, you basically have to buy it. Turns out the USDA has one of those for American farmers. It's called USDA BioPreferred. And what this says is if you are a USDA BioPreferred product, there are 139 categories that are mandatory for you to buy. So what we're able to do is, because we are both recycled wood and biological material, we qualify for essentially the highest and best provenance of base natural resources because it's 100%. So you can see here, intermediate plastic resins, our product goes into plastics at 22%. We become a guaranteed product. We can already hit 30% today. Asphalt restorers, you can see the 68%, concrete patching, concrete curing agents, concrete leveling, corrosion preventatives. We have products right now in all of these categories. Technically, they're not certified, but this is what we're aiming for, is a product that is essentially, you have to buy it. So we like those things. But when we think about, what is the real moat, what's the competitive advantage, why are we here today, is that I believe that the only true competitive advantage is each other, right? It's coalition building. Our moat is we're gonna do this together, we're gonna win together, and we're gonna make this happen. Oftentimes when I see rural development, it's outside people with outside money who do not care about the people that are there. They are there to extract as much and as fast as they possibly can. I'm a Washingtonian, he's a Washingtonian, he's a Washingtonian, I think you're in Oregon, he's an Oregonian, Quebec, whatever. You're over here on the left side, in the Cascadian. So whatever, he's over here. So all of us are here, all of us are local, and we want to engage the community and build something that supports local jobs, it supports education, it supports workforce, and most importantly, it supports the local infrastructure that we all need. So some of you might be familiar with the community benefits agreement. Oftentimes these things are required to receive federal funding. We don't explicitly have one, but the theory is the same. By building a coalition, by negotiating things in advance, by building relationships, we can come to an agreement as to what are the standards that we're gonna play together to make this business a success and to make sure people are fairly compensated. And then what we really wanna get to is this natural monopoly. So a natural monopoly, like a utility, right? There's no point in competing power lines. It's just not effective. You just kind of have a natural piece of infrastructure that's gonna be there. Well, we see our business as the same opportunity. By co-locating our equipment next to sawmills, we can create a natural monopoly that allows us to divert all that waste, turn our sawmills into zero waste facilities, and provide our local architectural, engineering, and construction firms who are gonna be required to build things at LEED Gold or Platinum, Built Green 4, or Passive House, or Living Building Challenge, or whatever it is that they're gonna do, that they'll be able to get first access and cheapest access to those products to win bids and make more money. So that's really what we're here to talk about today, is this. So I think that was about 15 minutes. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna take you outside and we're gonna show you the technology platform real quick. We'll come on back inside, check out some of the projects, and otherwise eat some snacks, drink some coffee, and let's all talk to each other. We've got investors in the room. We've got supply chain partners in the room. We've got forest products people in the room. We've got labor in the room. We've got policy people in the room. We have everybody we need here today to make this happen. So let's go on outside and we'll show you the tech.